when you're fasting, it's like you don't realize the work that's being done within you. Like, you're just doing all these things, and God might not be even showing you anything or speaking to you about nothing, or maybe he might be giving you little small hints, but nothing drastic happens. Like, no, drastic stuff is happening, but you just don't see it because it's happening inside you in the spiritual world.
My identity of myself shifted where I was like, okay, it's time for you to actually accept this. Like, accept the fact that you're worth it, and like, no matter what you've done in the past, like your body, your flesh, like, it doesn't define you, right? How you think, like, different things that we attach our identities to is not actually us.
Hello everyone, welcome to my podcast. I'm so glad that y'all are here. I have a special guest, Tanasha. Yes.
Hi guys.
Yes, so as you can tell by the title, we will be discussing about our experience when it comes to the Daniel fast.
Yay.
Would you please introduce yourself to the people that don't know who you are?
Hi everybody, my name is Tanasha. I am from Boston, Massachusetts, and it's funny because normally when we describe who we are, the first thing we do is we describe what we do. But let me just say, I'm not my job. I'm not the money that I make. But I will start with just giving some of that because I think it'll be helpful as far as being able to connect with anything that I say starting out. But right now I currently work for Boston Public Schools. I work with children with disabilities. I am 29 years young. I just turned 29 in December, which was actually during the fast, I think. Oh, no, that was December. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Cut. Redo. But yeah, I work with Boston Public Schools, and I'm also in the process of getting certified as a spiritual life coach. And it sounds so interesting when I say it, and everybody's like, well, what is that? And so from my perspective, the best way to describe it is like a therapist is somebody who helps with the past, and a life coach, they help you with like the future and trying to help you figure out how to do things better, how to close the gap between who you are now and what it is that you want to do. But a spiritual life coach actually helps bridge the two. So sometimes we talk a little bit about the past, sometimes we talk a little bit about the future, but the goal is really about knowing the difference between doing and knowing the difference between being. So a spiritual life coach is more so about who you're becoming. And the cool part is that spiritual life coaches are committed to being and transforming themselves, evolving themselves. So you're always going to be partnered up with someone who's actually doing the work and not somebody who's just talking about it.
For those of you who don't know what a Daniel fast is, basically for 21 days, you go on a vegan diet, essentially, and you have no sugar. You have no wheat. No, you
can eat wheat.
Oh, well, no sugar, no caffeine, just natural foods initially.
No dairy, no preservatives. Yeah, certain chemicals and stuff. So if food is like processed in it on the back of it, you probably can't eat it. So we had to really pay attention to that.
Yeah. So, where shall I start?
Anywhere you want.
So, background story, we both did the Daniel fast same time, and we ended the same time. I guess you can start off with what led you to do it, and I can just follow back with that.
Okay. So what led me to do it was a text message from this one over here simply telling me, hey, I'm about to do this Daniel fast. And I was like, okay, count me in. It was literally that simple.
Really?
Yeah, that's it. I wasn't thinking about it. I probably needed it more than I realized. But yeah, it was really just the accountability of just you thinking of me and asking that I was just like, yes, like, of course. And I feel like anytime you ask me, I will always say yes, depending on like if I'm already doing one or not. But it's really the fact that we kind of already did one together, and it was very beneficial that first time, and then this time was very effective. So
yeah. Wow, that's so funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was literally because of a text. That's it.
Wow. Okay. Well, how I was led to it. So the first time I heard about a Daniel fast was last year around January. I forgot where. I think it was social media. And it interested me, but I didn't really like look too much into it. I was just like, oh, okay. And then fast forwarding all the way to December, within that time frame, I seen it appear sometimes, and it always sparked an interest, but I never really dug into it until, I clicked on a video, started to watch about it, and then December came, and I don't know, I just felt led to start with the Daniel fast. I know a lot of people do it at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, and yeah, I'm like, might as well fast this year in particular. I want to get a breakthrough with what I've been doing, because I've been doing it for so long. So it's like, what best way to just fast? And one of my big goals is to have a deeper relationship with God. So I'm like, might as well do it.
Wait, so when you asked me, you wanted to know when's the first time I heard about it ever?
No, just when.
Or just this time around?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Just like what made you want to start?
Okay. So that this time around when I did it, it was because you texted me. But the first time I did it,
you did another Daniel?
I did, yeah.
I think I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Right. Yeah, so this was my second time. But the first time I did it, it was because a business venture that we both were a part of previously, I actually met somebody who was doing a Daniel fast when I met them. And so they told me about it. And I'm like, what is that? And so as they were explaining it, like, I just was like, oh, I'm going to give it a shot. Like, it sounded like something interesting to do. Like I said, I'm big into being healthy internally and externally. So I just gave it a shot. And yeah, it was definitely an interesting experience.
Oh, okay. Cool. What'd you say it was? You just said it was a different experience from the first and second time. Okay, cool. So what was that difference? Like, what did you do the first time that you did differently the second time?
That's a good question. I think I definitely meditated this time around way more. Like, meditation was a part of my practice every day. Prayer was a part of my practice every day. Having you as an accountability was like different, because I think I did it by myself. You didn't do it. Did you do it with me?
No.
That first time?
First time.
This was your first time? Wow.
Yeah.
Woo, let's go, Jazz. So I think I did it by myself. I don't think I knew. Nope, I wasn't doing it with anybody. So that was an experience. Yeah, that's about it. I think more introspective. I didn't know what I was getting into the first time, but this time I had like a little bit of background where I was like, okay, all right, set an intention, stick with it. I know something that was super easy for me with the first time was that I felt hungry, and I started to notice, like, as I was traveling, like, there's food places everywhere. Everywhere. And like being on public transportation, I'm like, whoa, like, it's everywhere. And then I started smelling food everywhere. And I guess what happened with the first time was I became acutely aware of how much time I focus on thinking about food, but also how our society, like, it's just money. That's it. It's just money. And we don't think twice about it, and how it's like everywhere, and it's a part of how we operate. But like, I started to become hyper aware of that. Yeah. It was a big, like, like my mind kind of was like, and it's funny because there's nothing really different about what's happening outside of you. It's just inside of you that switch, and it's like you're actually paying attention and looking closely.
Interesting. The second week, I think. Yeah, the second week I came across a video, and it was this woman, Christina Shaney, and she was explaining about fasting, and she mentioned the Daniel fast, and she was basically saying that fasting is not eating. And in the book of Daniel, he only ate when he needed to. He only ate when he needed to. So we're not really supposed to eat. And I know for me, the first week, I'm like, this is mad easy. Because one, I've been a vegan for like, I don't know, 3 years. I just now started implementing fish and stuff. But I'm like, this shit is so easy. I was eating 3 meals a day, mad full. And granted, I mean, I was off social media besides like YouTube and my business page. So like, you know, that wasn't really hard though. Like, it was so easy the first week. I'm like, something's wrong here. It shouldn't be this easy. And so second week when I came across that video and she said that, I'm like, kind of felt guilty. I'm kind of like, damn, I think I need to switch it around. And that's when I texted you about the video and what I plan on doing, right? So yeah, I only ate. I played around with it. I didn't really, because I was so used to eating for that long. It felt a little off for me to just go cold turkey. So I kind of went slow. I for breakfast I had like fruit, like 1 banana, and then I just had lunch, and then that was it. And you know, it was a little hard, but you know, it was you know, so like within the first week and second week, how did that transition go for you? And like
it's funny because the first thing I'm thinking about was that bland oatmeal that I had.
Yo,
the bland oatmeal.
Oh my god. I love oatmeal, but like, that oatmeal.
You know what's funny? Because I still have the dates sitting in my refrigerator.
You never had the dates?
I bought it, but I didn't use it.
No way. Dates made it so much better. Like, like it was eatable.
Yeah.
You need to use it.
So let's explain. So Jazz, she sends me some videos about certain people who are on the Daniel fast, and this is what happened when we did a 3-day water fast together. We sent each other videos because we want to do our research, and obviously for anybody tuning in and thinking about doing the Daniel fast, do your research first. If you have any health issues or anything going on, talk to your doctor first just to make sure it's good for you. But we did our research. Luckily she did more than me, so the videos that she sent me, I kind of used that as my cheat code. And so on one of the videos, I don't remember the young lady's name, but she was given like 3 different recipes that she had, and it was for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so I was like, cool, I don't want to have to think. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner it is. And so for breakfast, it was oatmeal, and it had what was it, like cinnamon, pumpkin spice or something, some walnuts, what else, I put flaxseed in it, a scoop of flaxseed. I put, what was the other one, what's the little tiny things,
chia seeds?
Not chia seeds, that's it, chia seeds. So I put that in it. And I thought if I put banana mushed up in it, it would just replace the sugar. And it didn't. Like, it gave a little bit of sweetness to it, but it wasn't as heavy. But what Jazz said was that when she had the dates, she realized that dates actually gave it the sweetness that it needed. But for me, I was like, all right, God, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. And it's funny because I really felt, and I'm sure we'll get into this more, but there were moments where I was kind of like angry. Like, it's kind of like putting an animal in a cage and just trying to like jingle something in front of them. And even though it's not what they want, because they need food, it's like, give me. And I'm like, I don't want this oatmeal, but give it to me. I'm hungry. So it was very bland and unsatisfying, but I had to retrain my thoughts to be in gratitude.
And what I noticed too, because I've heard other people say in videos, is the focus shouldn't be on food. It shouldn't be on food. And that's where my transition started to happen in the second week. It was less about, oh, what am I going to cook today? And because in the first week, so let's kind of bring it back. my intention for the Daniel fast, I mean, I touched upon it a little bit, was to get closer to God, was to really work on my businesses, YouTube, Galda Mode, because I really want to grow within that aspect. And I feel like the first week, granted, I was focused on Galda Mode, but the first week did not go as expected whatsoever. Like, I was still trying to work on a project that I was implementing in the magazine, and I did that whole week. Like, that's how long it lasted me. From the morning time all the way up to like nighttime, I was like, I didn't do nothing else besides that.
Yes, that's awesome. No, that's awesome.
But like, it made me feel so like disappointed in a way, because it's like I wanted to utilize that time for God. I wanted to utilize that time to like connect with myself and all that.
Can I challenge your perspective?
Let me say this, and then maybe it'll relate. So I think it was that Monday, and I think it was a little bit before I seen that video. I was listening to a talk by Torrey Roberts. And he said something that I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was just a reminder, because I already knew this, but I forgot. And he was essentially talking about making time for God. Even if you're even if you have the busiest schedule, like, you need to make time for God. And when I heard that, I was like, he's so right. Because, I wanted to get it done so badly. I was putting all my focus and attention on this project that, was gonna bring me success and stuff like that. But I had to realize, like, it's not gonna happen it's not gonna happen unless I have time with God and I allow him to do the work that he needs to do in order for me to get this project done. Because it's like, for so long I've always been doing stuff my way, and just focused on me, and just focusing on business more than the inside of me and stuff like that. Just like putting my attention to all things that don't really matter, like that. By that video, after that, I'm like, okay, we're gonna wake up, we're gonna do some yoga, meditate, pray, all that, and then we can get to work. And I feel like that's from the toxic productivity that I struggle with. Okay. Just like, so, yeah.
And it's funny, because that was exactly what I was going to ask you about, is do you feel like you struggle with doing nothing?
I've learned to be okay with that, definitely. I would say before the fast, I still had struggle. But I feel like I've been more intentional, and when I feel bored and I feel like I need to do something, I'll just sit and talk with God and stare at the wall and just like, okay, whatever. Like, what do you want me to do? So yeah.
It's so interesting, because from my perspective, one of my intentions was to create this space within inside of myself so that I can kind of be a vessel for creativity, like to access more of my creative brain, because typically this body is more on the logical side. And I wanted that experience where you're like, oh, for a week, like I had a vision and I was doing work. But I totally get what you mean by like you want your faith and your relationship with the creator, the source, however you want to describe it. You want your relationship to be the foundation, so that way when that creativity does pour out of you, you don't end up feeling like depleted, or like there's other things that you haven't really taken care of. Because if the foundation is solid, then I feel like the other areas it'll be fruitful, or you'll feel like more, like you won't feel like I'm in this rush energy. You'll more so feel like you're more in the spirit and like you're being guided. So I hear what you're saying. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And from that, I learned a lot. I don't know if that time and within that week I finished it. I know I just finished it because it's a struggle. It was a struggle. But I know I kind of gave myself a break, and I'm like, okay, let me just focus on God, because right now I'm not in control of none of this. Like, I'm doing what I have to do, and I just gotta let God do the work. So I'm just gonna reshift my focus and pay attention to Him. I guess my next question is, because I feel like a lot of things happened in the last week. Granted, I did get a lot of revelation, a lot of answers that I've been asking God for. I did get a lot of that. Oh, shoot. Oh, okay, I'm gonna talk about this. Oh my gosh.
Tell us.
So, I don't know if it was the second week. I think it was the second week. I, like, went through a whole shift. And it came from this dream I had. Yes, I'm not gonna share the dream. At least not yet. But it was this very intense, vivid dream. And it made me wake up. Like, I woke up in the middle of the night. Well, not really the middle of the night. I woke up at like 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. And I could not go back to sleep. And I'm just like, what the heck was that? And I've had vivid dreams of like that certain thing before, but it was just it happens rarely. So when it does happen, I'm just like, whoa, what? And it was so crazy. So
all in favor of wanting to know the details of the dream, say aye.
So yeah, I stayed up, I journaled about it, because I'm like, what the freak, like, what? So I journaled about it, yada yada yada. That same day, I was going through my journaling prompts and all that, and I came across this video. Well, this not a video, but more so this ministry channel, and he had a video about how to know if a dream it comes from God. So he listed out these 3 things. I don't really remember like that, but I think the first one, he said it's God-led. It's biblical, and from that I'm like, go to the Bible. And then the third one, it promotes a good feeling. So I went to the Bible, and it's God is funny. He's funny. He leads me to this scripture that he led me to before. It's the same one, and it was Ezekiel. I forgot. I decided to read that whole passage because I'm like, okay, I'm really trying to understand like what's happening here, like, you know. And he led me to Ezekiel again, so I'm like, okay. So I'm reading about it, and it was like kind of negative, and I'm like, because the dream was positive, and I'm like, what are you trying to say? Like, what's happening here? And then I had a revelation, and basically the scripture was talking about how it was like these 2 sisters, and they were like sinning within sexual immortality and like being very lustful towards men and just having sex with men. And I think it was Ezekiel. I don't know too much about the Ezekiel, but it was a man, maybe Ezekiel. Like, God kind of punished him in a way where he killed his wife or something like that. It was interesting. And then so I'm like praying, I'm like, what are you trying to say here? Then I had this revelation. I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense towards the situation that I was talking to him about. And it's like, for so long I've been very lustful. Like, with every man that walks into my life that's attractive and that's of high value. Like, I've just been very lustful, and more so thinking like, oh, that's a possibility for him to be my husband. That's a possibility for him to be my man. Oh, you know, he's cute. Oh, getting all these lustful feelings when it's like, he's just a person. He's just a person, or he's just here to be my friend. He's just here to be a guide. Like, you know, and it would be constant. And I'm like, wow. And I repented from this lustful nature. I don't like how, even with my guy friends, like, I don't like that I have these thoughts. I'm like, no, like, ew, why are you like, no. So I repented. I'm like, no more. I give it to you. Like, no. And the next day, I woke up and it felt like I just experienced the breakup. And I woke up feeling so fresh and new and just different. Like, it was such a weird feeling. It was so weird. And that day I repented, you sent me a song from this girl on YouTube. I forgot what it's called, but it was like a kind of like an affirmation song.
Maybe Tony Jones. Look her up, y'all. Tony Jones.
Yeah, I don't know. It was that, and I'm just like, oh my god, this aligns so much. But yeah, so the next day I repented, and then the next day I felt so brand new, and from that day on, I was really into God. Like, before, when I would watch certain videos, or even these calls I would be on, that a friend directed me to, I would, like, not be fully present. I would be on my phone. I would, while the talk was happening, I would be thinking about other stuff. Like, I wasn't fully present. And I'm like, yeah, no, this needs to change. So ever since then, I've been really present. I've been taking notes. I've been, like, going back to the Bible and reading. I've just matured a lot within my relationship with God. It's so interesting how that all happened. Like, yeah. That was a lot.
I love your transparency. Give it up for her, y'all. Because I know many of y'all can relate to everything she just said, including myself. So, cheers. But there's a couple of things that you said that stood out to me. One, I definitely can relate to that second week was really interesting. And I didn't think I was going to bring it up. But since you brought that up, I'm going to bring it up. But during this fast, I noticed that, and mind you, I'm single, right? During this fast, I've been abstinent for over a year. I was extremely horny. All right, like extremely, and it like increased in week 2. So something that you said about being attracted to men of high value or who appear as though they're high value, or like one of the things that I noticed, and this obviously came with journaling, and hopefully we could talk into your journal prompts, was I feel like, especially for women, that if we struggle with like fatherhood, and granted, I don't want to like play victim consciousness and point the finger outside of myself, but you do have to be able to like look back at your experience and from an elevated perspective, like not in a what do you call it, accusing and like this is pointing the finger. It's like, to some degree, I feel like we chose the experiences and the families that we're into because it was part of our need for evolving. So something that was coming up for me was, I feel like when you have a certain background and you struggle with quote unquote fatherhood wounds, or like maybe you do have a father there and there's certain like affirmations and stuff not said to us, I feel like what happens is when somebody remotely appears or they say the right thing or they do the right thing, it's like they feel this perceived void that's within us, and instead of us being like, yes, I'm worthy, like, oh, you're beautiful, like you get overly at least for me, let me speak from my experience, I was getting overly excited and overly stimulated by the bare minimum. By the bare minimum, like people giving you attention, guys giving you attention, and it's like, why are you so? And that was something that I was able to like look at with this fast, was to have more clarity towards that, is really asking myself genuine questions about like, where is that coming from? And so that's what came up for me. So this was an opportunity to really just kind of pull that energy back in and put it toward myself, because I think what happens is we get so like caught up on external that we take all of our power and we're like just giving it away, like, here, take my power, and nah, we pulling that back all 2023. And then the second part that you brought up that I wanted to talk about was the sinning and the sexual lust. And the way that I've been like changing my thoughts about it is like, we all have superpowers, right? We all have superpowers. And I feel like sometimes it comes out as anger, or sometimes it comes out as being super lustful, or like there's just certain things about us that I feel like society typically labels as like, oh, this is bad, or this is sinning. And I feel like it's like you have a super safe, like this fire. I always use this analogy, like this fire in your hands, and because nobody ever trained you on how to like use that fire, you like burn down houses and stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh. And so like we think it's bad, but it's really like you have this sexual essence, this way about you, and you choose how you want to express it, which is what I hear you saying is like you want to change the way you express it. You want to channel it a certain way, which like that is awesome. Like, and that's why I was like, our paths are so interesting, because I wanted to tap into that and channel it. And I had to remind myself during the fast, I'm like, all right, you're horny, but it doesn't mean to call up exes. It doesn't mean to like go out and mix and mingle and try to meet new people. It means to harness that and like talk to God about it, talk to your inner being about it, and figure out like, how can I channel this? How can I use it? And for me, I'm still waiting on some dreams to come my way. I'm still waiting on some visions. Like, I probably should still be fasting, but I'm learning that it's okay to be in this season to just harness the energy. Like, just hone into it. Because normally, I feel like for me, I'm always like putting it in a box, even with how I dress, how I speak. Like, I'm always in this masculine energy, like trying to hide. But really, I just want to be like, take me, but not like men or the flesh, but more so like in spirit. Like, take me, use me, show me what it is that can be birthed through me. And so that's what it sounds like I'm hearing for you, is you're trying to like harness that and be like, you know what, now I know what to do with it.
I mean, I've struggled with sexual transmutation, because initially that's what it is.
Yes,
just like
literally
utilizing your sexual energy and just creating it in a way where you're not making babies or like having sex and
unless
stuff.
you can financially support that. Do you, boo?
But yeah, just like, okay, because granted, I'm human, I'm still going to have these thoughts, but instead of entertaining these thoughts, how can I drive them towards something else? How can I just create this specific energy where it can create success rather than bring me back to the past and just like somewhere where it really has no business being in. So yeah, I'm still working on it though. It's a struggle, but I can say now I have this new awareness and I know who I am, and you know, I've been more focused on me than like relationships and wanting and having this need of like, oh my God, a relationship. Like, you know, I've just been more focused on me and God. Like, me and God. It's just me and God right now. So yeah.
Yeah, we did a meditation before this, and there's another meditation that I can also send you. One of the meditations is like cutting cords. So apparently when we so I heard, do you ever listen to 19 Keys?
I've watched one video of him. I haven't watched the video that you sent me.
So it's interesting. So one of our coaches actually like recommended this to us, well, a while ago, and they're like, listen to 19 Keys. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. But at that time, I wasn't ready. And during this fast, like my hunger for listening to him like skyrocketed. It skyrocketed. But the reason why I bring him up is because there's one video that I watched, and he talks about like spiritual cheating. And he says like when you're in a relationship with somebody, or maybe you have like these friendship relationships, there's different levels to how you connect with people. There's emotional connections, there's spiritual connections, there's obviously physical connections like sexual. And so he's like, your girl or your guy could be like cheating on you if you're in a relationship, if they're like listen to a pastor or something. So maybe you might fulfill their needs physically, but if they're going to church, listening to the pastor or listening to something on YouTube, that person, they're being spiritually fed through somebody else. So in his argument, he's like, people need to learn, if you're going to have these connections or if you're going to connect with yourself, to learn like, okay, there's different levels to my needs and how am I satisfying those. And so the meditation that I was mentioning is like, we don't see it, and this is why I believe spirituality is so important, is we don't see it, but these bonds are still being connected, they're still being created. And so like when you feel like overly excited or you're like creating these narratives about people that are not true, or like they're looking at you from a different perspective and you're looking at them through this perspective, like we create these invisible ties because we're like emotionally or spiritually connected to people. And so that meditation was like powerful for me, and I wasn't talking as much to people. I wasn't like, I was heavy on YouTube, guys, so I'm not even gonna lie there, but I wasn't talking as much to people. I was really more to myself and just practicing like cutting those invisible cords, because I'm like, even with past relationships, like the sexual, I don't know if you guys believe in soul ties and all that.
I was gonna mention that. I was literally waiting. I'm like,
right, go for it, the floor is yours.
It's okay, you can go.
No, that's all I was gonna say was that I'll send you the meditation, but it's just like bringing awareness to there's different ways to connect with people, whether we're platonic or not platonic or sexual, like it doesn't matter, but those connections still happen. And it's only because we like are not aware of how powerful we are, and so we gotta pull that power back in.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so when I experienced that sense of freeness, because that's how I felt, I woke up and I felt so free. I felt like I cut the soul ties off. I cut the soul ties off from like, just because a lot of the time some energies that you feel is not yours whatsoever, and especially if you are sexually active. And soul ties doesn't really have to mean like being sexual with another person. You can get it from a lot of different places, but in this situation, like, you know, being sexually active with people, and you don't know what energy you're taking in whatsoever. And then, you know, if you have a boyfriend or somebody and you're having sex with them, it's like you're taking in who they are, what they feel inside, all their demons and stuff like that. And it's latching onto you, and you don't even realize it, and then you become this whole different person. You know, so yeah, soul ties is real. Can be dangerous.
It's funny because one of the breakthroughs I feel like I had also was related to like the way you say sometimes the energy is not ours. Is for me, it was more so recognizing that some of the thoughts that I was thinking, I'm like, this is like either like past life stuff or like karma, like just stuff that doesn't have anything to do with me. Because I started realizing like this stuff that I'm afraid of, and I'm like, where's this fear coming from? Like I said, back to these intentional questions. Like ask yourself intentional questions. Like you might not get the answer right away, but it will come. It will definitely come. Like it's so interesting how that happens. And as I'm like increasing my journaling, I'm like, you know Pastor Daniels? Yeah. So Pastor Darius Daniels, look him up. He's somebody that I've been following for over a year. I think I connected with him like during the pandemic or something. But he mentioned an Acts prayer, and obviously it's like the Bible, but there's an acronym for it. So A is for adoration. So something about God that you adore, something that he's helped you with in the past that you really appreciate. C is for confession. So that's kind of self-explanatory. T is for Thanksgiving. So for this one is like 4 parts. So what are you thankful for when it comes to spiritual blessings? What are you thankful for when it comes to relational blessings? What are you thankful for when it comes to material blessings? And what are you thankful for as far as answered prayers? And then the S stands for supplication, which is basically just ask. And you know that quote that's like if you just ask, like write the vision and make it plain. That's pretty much what S is for. And it's like just ask. And I noticed for me, when I was journaling, like it increased a lot, my questions, and like I have like 4 pages. Like I was writing a lot. So it was interesting how that transformation and just finding a flow that works for me, where I was like asking questions and I'm like, oh shoot, I just asked this like a couple of days ago and I'm like, I got the answer. So that was pretty cool to have that level of like discipline with myself and just seeing how my thoughts were like evolving slowly.
It's just so interesting how when you set an intention and you follow through with this intention, all the things that just come with it. It's just very interesting. And this leads me to my next question. How has God shaped you in the last week?
I like that question. How has God shaped me in the last week of this
Did
fast?
he shape you? Like, what happened?
So I know for me, I was listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and as you all can hear, right, I reference how many people now, like 4 5, right? So the same way Jazz is saying that she wanted to connect with God and like not do as much, I realized after the fast, like, shorty, you was listening to a lot of YouTube. Like maybe that should have been the fast, which I'm actually doing for the month of February, where I'm like no YouTube at all. So yeah. But I was listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks, and so my definition of the creator and like who I am definitely evolved. Like even in the Acts prayer when I was doing it, first I was like, dear God, ... like I was writing in that way, but then I started praying to like my higher self, if you will, like the inner being part of me, the part of me that's always connected to God. And so I feel like kind of recognizing like if I'm made in God's image, then there's a part of me that is like part of God. So I feel like what happened was, because for me, I used to struggle with like a lot of self-esteem and like a lot of insecurities, self-deprecating thoughts, and really just creating narratives that don't empower me, they don't serve me. And so through that struggle, that was one of the things I was praying for, was like, help me to overcome this. And one of the things that Pastor Daniels always says is he's like if you're made in God's image, then you kind of owe it to yourself to see yourself as like royalty, to see yourself as somebody who's deserving, somebody who's worthy. And so my identity of myself shifted, where I was like, okay, it's time for you to actually accept this, like accept the fact that you're worth it. And like no matter what you've done in the past, like your body, your flesh, like it doesn't define you, right? How you think, like different things that we attach our identities to is not actually us. And so I was able to kind of push my body out of the way, but also pull my body back in, and like kind of what you were saying, like stop doing certain things and like sinning and stuff. I recognize that there's parts of us, like the flesh, right? There's the flesh, there's the spirit. And so I recognize that you have to feed the flesh. Like you wanted to like stop and just like you want to go through this drastic experience, and I was like, I want to love myself more. And loving yourself more is definitely like sitting in silence, connecting with God. But for me, I didn't want to feel like I said earlier, like the animal in the cage, and you're like jingling a piece of fish or something out there, and you're like I didn't want that part. But I experienced it. But as I experienced it, I recognized like there's also the other way of like, if you want to have sex, go have sex. Not saying I'm still abstinent, but like there's certain things that we do, whether you party, whether you drink, like there's certain things that you do that are okay in moderation. And so for me, I started catering to like a balanced version of myself, where it's like, okay, what does your flesh need? Okay, give it that. But you can't like govern me. You can't run my life, but give it that. What does your spirit need? Like, okay, give it that, but don't be sitting on YouTube for hours. And like, that's why I'm like, no YouTube for February. You was doing too much. Like, you couldn't even hear your own internal thinking. So like, no. So it's like I learned to really embrace the wholeness of who I am, as far as like the flesh and the spirit and the part of us that's like connected to God. And I really felt like this internal spaciousness, because I think a lot of the space within me was like filled with so much judgment and so much like what other people think, or like fears about stuff that is just like other people. And it's like, no, how do you actually feel? And so as I learned to like turn down that volume and like trust in that, I really start to feel more confident and like more like, okay, I can trust myself this time. But it's not really myself, it's like the part of me that's always connected to God. And so just recognizing like he's never apart from us, like he's always with us. It's just a matter of, are we connected? And so this was an opportunity to really like reconnect. Yeah.
You said a lot of things. That was really powerful. You said a lot of things that I want to touch upon. touch it. So I guess the first, what you were just talking about feeding the flesh, that's very interesting, because I know a lot of people, especially within like the religion community, just like, I don't want to sin, I want to be perfect, all these things. And you know, they always try to go right, which is good, I guess. But I remember Roddy telling me this, that we have the dark side of us. Granted, everybody has that. And it's not much so removing that part, because it's who you are. You can't not neglect that side of yourself. But like you were talking about, like balance, not feeding it too much and all that. That's very interesting, because I feel like there's a lot of perspective when it comes to this. And I feel like right now my mind is battling with those two perspectives, like agreeing to disagree and all that. But like you said, like what I've been doing, like tapping into, I guess, my dark feminine, and not really neglecting that, just understanding that that's a part of who I am, and if I want to change it, I can, but it's always going to be there. Like, it's always going to come up. So instead of feeling negative, feeling bad about that part of yourself, just accept it and move forward from it. Accept it, move forward, and just know that you're human. We're human. We're in this human body, living this physical experiences. We're always going to be tempted. We're always going to have lust within us. Like, we're always going to have all these bad things. These bad things, but it's just how you work with it.
The thing I'll add too is like, I think I said this to you in the car, that I started doing a lot of like Buddhist studies and like studying Buddhism. And what comes up for me as you like recapping is like, one of the phrases that they use is like, not too tight, not too loose. Not too tight, not too loose. So it's like finding what's true for you. And like the people who are on the extremes, or they're like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, like it's like you have to, nobody can tell you what's the right measure. You have to go through the experience of finding it yourself. And like once you identify that truth, trusting yourself enough to stand in it.
Yeah, you just reminded me.
Yes.
Trust. And you spoke about like how you struggled with trusting yourself, and you realized like trusting God, and how God is never far away. He's always with us and everything like that. And I agree, because for this whole freaking time, and I would just say up until last year, well, not even, because I was still experiencing it, but like this whole time I've been struggling with trusting myself, just trust in general. Like last year was my first year that I really reconnected my faith within God, and I actually built a relationship with him. He put me into this season where I was challenged with trust. Like OD, like, it was like, okay, whatever, this situation happened. I'm like, word. And then he took that situation away, and I'm like, whoa, I can't trust myself anymore. I don't even know if I could trust you, God, anymore. It was just so interesting. But within that whole year up until now, I've been learning the whole reasoning behind that, and how, because when you desire something, when you want money, when you want a relationship, when you want clothes, when you want anything, all your desires, you need to learn and understand how to rely on God within that. And I feel like, especially within like New Age and stuff like that, they teach us like, it's just you're in control of everything. And you know, you have, like, granted, we have the power, but God gives us the power, you know? So it's like there's another being up there that's orchestrating everything. Like, we just follow the instruction, while God just reveals to us from the outside what we need to do, and from the inside too. But yeah, when it comes to just trust, it's like, if God says it, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And you just need to learn how to be patient and not want these fast microwave results. Because what I've learned is, if you do it on your own and it happens, it's not gonna be nowhere near as good as if you waited and allowed God to do it. Because God knows you best. He knows me best. I don't know shit about me. What the fuck? He clearly knows me best. So just allowing him to do the work, and me focus on what I need to focus on, and his instructions, and just allowing him, like, just letting go of control. Because I feel like when it comes to trust,
sorry guys, I got something in my eye. I think it's eyeliner, but it's like,
I hate
no,
that.
keep going though. Keep flowing.
Yeah, so like, when it comes to like trust, I feel like a lot of that has to deal with having control, wanting control. You good?
I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for her to be like, are you crying? Like, no, it's just,
I understand.
okay, as long as you don't think I'm crying.
No. But yeah, a lot of that has to do with control and wanting this control, and like, I can only trust you if you like show me, like, again and again and again and again. Because like, God shows you. He doesn't want us to just be left in the dust wondering. He leaves wonder, but he shows us bits and pieces of the story, of the puzzle, so it can keep us motivated, so we can know that he is good. But we just gotta wait on his promises and just trust. Like, I feel like, especially within the last week, so I'm gonna go into it. So when I texted her about it, so we were supposed to end, so we started January 7th, and we were supposed to end what day?
Like the 25th or something?
Yeah. This girl right here, I was like, I cannot wait until this is over.
Oh yeah.
This girl right here texts, oh, I think I'm gonna go to up until the end of the month. And I'm like, shit. I gotta do it too, because we started together, might as well end together.
Hold on, but tell the whole story, because I could have sworn your text message was like, oh, I was thinking about doing the same thing. I don't think it was just me. No. Okay, tell the whole story.
No, so like, as I was like just thinking about, so I don't know when it exactly happened, but a thought came to mind of just like water fasting. Because since I started it so easily and it wasn't that hard, I felt like, you know, I needed to make it harder. I needed to like let God know, like, I'm serious about this. Like, I want to give my flesh to you. Like, I'm serious about all these things that I want, and I know you show up for me. I know you do all these things for me, you sacrifice for me, so let me sacrifice extra hard for you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it appeared to my mind that I like doing a water fast, but I'm like, maybe like the next fast. And then that's when she texted. I'm like, shit. So you didn't do this, but I decided to do this. On the last 2 days of the month, it was just straight water. No food, nothing, just water. Just water.
So let me just add to this, right? When she texted me that, saying she was doing that, I was like, have fun. I didn't have to think twice about it. I was like, have fun. Mind you, we did a 3-day water fast together. Yeah. So I knew what I would be getting into. And I was, have fun. So yeah, tell us about that. How was that experience?
Oh my God, let me tell you. So it's very interesting leading up to that moment. Within the weekend before it happened, Saturday night, I was chilling on my bed watching YouTube. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I watch prophetic videos. And this girl that I watch sometimes, she was saying something. I was like, oh shit. So she was saying, the video was basically about making this one decision. And by making this one decision, you'll get everything you want. Like, you know, everything will come to you if you just make this one decision. So as she was explaining it, I'm just here thinking, and in my head, the whispers of quit smoking weed keeps appearing in my mind. And before, like, I would have that pop up in my head for a little bit, time to time. I remember the first time I questioned that idea was actually like during my spiritual awakening, which was like 2018, 2019. And I remember watching a video about, I think it was an Aaron Doughty video, and he was explaining like he quit smoking weed, yada, yada, yada. And I remember being at my friend's house and like, I feel like when I'm older, I'm not going to smoke anymore. But I'm like, but I don't know. I kept smoking, whatever. I'm not a smoker. I'm not a pothead. I smoke intentionally, like, you know, I barely smoke. So I didn't really understand like why I would need to stop, because it's like, well, I don't really care about it. I could stop anytime. And then again it appeared heavily at a training event in Orlando. I don't know if you were there.
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah. So it was a training event, and I think it was Jesse McPherson. He was basically saying his story on how he didn't even make it to this certain rank, but his friends challenged him, if you don't make it to this rank, then you need to work at McDonald's, something like that. And I remember sitting across my friend, and we were all talking about, okay, if we don't make this happen, what are we giving up? And I'm here struggling, trying to think. And I'm like, this guy in front of me was like, oh, like, you know, if I don't make this rank, I'm gonna stop smoking. And that appeared to me too, like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. But I'm like, but why? Like, I'm not even, like, smoking means nothing to me. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But anyways, fast forwarding to that night, I'm like, nah. I'm like questioning that thought. I'm like, nah, God, that's not it. Like, that's not it. And this girl was like, at the end of the video, whatever popped in your head, whatever popped in your head, that moment, that's it. You already know. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, nah. So I'm in the shower. The next day, I'm like, okay, God, like, what is this about? If you really want me to stop, then send me a video. Like, send me a video on YouTube if you really want me to stop about weed. And so on this Sunday, I was going to church, and I had time to kill. So I went to this area near my house where you can see like a mini view of Boston and stuff. So I was just there watching some videos, And I go to my subscription page and I'm scrolling and I see a freaking video about weed and I'm like, oh no. I'm like, oh great. Oh great. But it was nothing really negative. It was just this Jamaican girl talking about the GMO in weed in today's world and how, like, you know, we need to be smoking this natural stuff and like all that. And I'm like, okay, kind of brought peace to my heart about that situation. I'm like, okay, God, so you don't want me to smoke, like, only natural. Got it.
Trying to talk herself out of it.
Like, got it. Okay. So I'm just like, still trying to understand. Because I was so confused. I'm like, why? Like, why? But that day was very powerful. I went to church and, like, you need to come to Jubilee with me, girl.
You know what's funny? No, I'll tell you after.
But this, like, Jubilee Church, Boston, very powerful church. Like, as soon as I walked in, I felt the Holy Spirit. I felt God all over me. And I'm like, whoa. And it's just like what they were talking about like home and stuff like that. It was just very powerful. And it was just like very, very powerful. Maybe another video for another day. But coming back home and like, I'm like, I trust you, God. Like, even on my way to church, I'm like, okay, I trust you, God, because you know me better. You know best. You know why. And I don't know, like, I don't know if it's a forever thing. I don't know if it's just for this season that I need to stop. And I understand why he was like, stop. Because when I smoke, I don't know how to function. Like, it cannot be on here talking while high. I can't be, like, I can't function like that. So, you know, obviously my mind has been very immature while smoking. And he also, and this was a little bit before, and I don't really care about this, but forever, stop. I'm not gonna drink hard liquor, so it's just wine. So no smoking, no drinking. I was like, bet God has transformed me into a whole new person. And I don't know if it was the same video or if it was a different video, but essentially it was the same girl, and she was talking about, like, essentially she was talking about, in order for you to get something different, you gotta do something different. You have to be somebody different. You have to let go of what's comfortable. And that kept appearing, like, let go of what's comfortable and all that. And I feel like for so long, you know, smoking weed has made me feel so comfortable. Instead of facing my issues, like, sober, let me smoke. And it's just like, it's a good feeling, like, you know, I don't even care anymore. It's whatever. But yeah, so he led me to that. And then the last 2 days, the first day mentally, it wasn't that hard, but mentally it was hard because I'm like, food. And then the second day, I wasn't even hungry. I wasn't hungry whatsoever. And I think it's because I wasn't home and I was doing stuff. So my mind was, like, distracted. But yeah, I feel like just my relationship with God just deepened. And I wanted to mention this too. Like, when you're fasting, it's like you don't realize the work that's being done within you. Like, you're just doing all these things and God might not be even showing you anything or speaking to you about nothing, or maybe he might be giving you little small hints, but nothing drastic happens. Like, no, drastic stuff is happening, but you just don't see it because it's happening inside you in the spiritual world. And after the fast was over, I remember, like, I was hanging out with my older sister. She's like, how are you? And I'm like, girl, I feel like a whole new woman. Like, I feel so much more mature now. I feel like it's just, he ripped off the old version of me, and I'm just like this new person. And it's crazy. I'm not going to speak about it because I'm waiting until it happens. But the last night, he showed me something. Like, that I've been praying for. He showed me something that, like, I set the intention for within the fast. And within the fast, I've been seeing it. Like it's, I for so long I thought I was relying on other things to provide for it, and just thinking, oh well, I need this in order for this to happen, yada yada yada. But it's like, no, I don't. The only thing I need is God, because God provided it, and He showed it to me, and I'm just like, oh my God. And the song that appeared in my mind the morning, it just randomly appeared. It's from the internet, and the lyrics was like, what's the lyrics? You don't even know, whoa, whoa. And it's like, literally, that just kept replaying. You don't even know. Like, you don't even know what's about to happen, girl. You don't know nothing. Like, you don't even know. And I'm just like, yeah.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that was coming up for me as you were talking, one of my mentors, they use this term, God winks. And so what I hear from you is that even up to like Florida, you were like retracing your steps and able to like notice like the God winks that was happening. And so I was like, okay, like just for people who are listening, like keep in mind, like God speaks to us in different ways, and so it's really up to the individual person to really like listen and like recognize, like, okay, because you could have been the person who's like, oh, I see the video, I know I just asked about this, but I'm gonna go and live my best life. But no, you actually followed that nudge, you followed that God wink. And I think that is like awesome, because a lot of us, sometimes we get the signs and we don't listen. Like the sign will be right in front of you on a billboard while you're at a red light, and it's like, and you're like, let me just act like I don't see it. Let me just act like I don't see it. So shout out to you for actually following that. And for me, it was a little bit different, where I was like, what have I heard? I heard something about like when you're going through this spiritual awakening or evolution or this detox, what happens is external things that used to satisfy you, they no longer satisfy you. And so for me, what was coming up was like, it was wine. It was wine for me. Yeah. And not saying that I've been like super addicted to wine or anything. Like I feel like I've always had a balance, but I noticed like I typically drink when I'm like feeling a certain emotion and I just want to mellow it out. I don't want to like confront it. And so during this fast, and even to this day, those meditations that I'm doing, I recognize that like my appetite changed. Like I didn't want external things that satisfy me, like the YouTube fast that I'm doing right now. And something else coming up, I'll come back to the external stuff, is like sometimes when you do a fast and you have an intention, you might not get that answer in that window that you do the fast. It might come after the fast. And so that was so dope how we both was able to like extend it and recognize like, okay, maybe we need more. So like listen to that inside of you that tells you like, maybe I should go longer, maybe I don't need to go. Is like whatever it is for you is different. But coming back to the external piece of like emotions, like I started realizing how much I run for my emotions, and I started paying attention to the different ways that I numb it, YouTube being one, right? All I want to feel is happy. I want to listen to these messages that are just feeding me and making me feel good, and I'm recognizing that I'm actually not allowing those other emotions that like just let it process, because it doesn't even last that long. When you allow yourself to really feel your feelings, like a lot of the health issues that people have, it's not what they think it is. It's because they're not processing the feelings. They like bottling stuff up. They're not expressing themselves. And so for me, I really like gave myself permission to just feel and to not grab the bottle, right? Not to do whatever, listen to YouTube, but to actually like practice, just like you said, talking to God and being like, help me with this. Like, help me with this. And the cool part is that when you learn to ask for help, you recognize, like we said, like God's always there. He's always connected to you. But two, you start to build that trust muscle of like, I actually don't have to do this alone. Like, I don't have to do this alone. But in our minds, we think we have to do it alone. Why? Because we're so dependent on the flesh. right? Maybe there's somebody that we met, somebody that we grew up with that didn't meet our expectations. Yeah. Guess what? They're not God.
No.
They're not God. So, like, you have to disconnect to reconnect. Mm-hmm. You definitely have to disconnect.
Yeah. Ever since the day, I guess I was saved. Ever since the day I realized that I would talk about it forever. Like, it felt like I was going on a trip. It felt like I was on a freaking shroom trip. When I realized that God has always been here with me. Like, it was after the first call of the commission, and he gave us an assignment, and he was like, journal about how God has just shown up in your life. Like, just journal about it. And I'm journaling, and I'm like, wow. Like, from the moment I questioned about who is the creator of this world, up until, like, my whole journey of finding myself, spiritualism, going crazy within that, to him leading a person to me to guide me to the commission, into that moment of journaling of like, whoa, God has always been here with me. And I just broke down crying. I was just happiness. And it's just like, oh my God, like, it was just this whole revelation of, I'm not alone. I've never been alone. And I've struggled with loneliness for so long too. Always feeling so lonely and stuff. But it's like, my bestie, my homie, my father, he's there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's so dope. Deja vu. That's so dope, because I don't think it was during this fast, but like, I've had a moment where I had that revelation of like, I've never been alone. And like, for those who don't know me, a little bit about my background, I was adopted when I was younger by my father's mom. So a lot of my identity stuff, my identity issues, it came from like, okay, first your name was this, and then your name was changed, and like, you didn't grow up with your mom, you didn't grow up with your father. Like, maybe he was around, but he wasn't really like present, emotionally available. So a lot of that came from how I processed that experience. And so for me, I think it was when I read The Untethered Soul, and when I did my first chop and I cut off all my hair, is I started realizing like, I've never been alone. And I felt like I had that same breakthrough of like, I've always been loved. I've always been worthy. But like I said, like, we disconnect. And so it was about like, how do you reconnect to that awareness? Because it never stops. Like, it's there, but if you're like constantly drinking or constantly smoking or constantly listening to YouTube, constantly surrounding yourself around people who maybe they have intentions for your life and you don't even know what you want to do for your life yet, like, it's like you have to silence the noise so you can turn up the volume of what God's trying to communicate through you. Turn it up. But you gotta disconnect to reconnect. And that's like the hardest part, is because we're like all in this like this hamster wheel of like doing and just gotta get to the next. So that's so interesting that you had that breakthrough too.
Yeah, God is always speaking to us. We just need to be able to hear him. And last thing, because I know we're going on for how long. What time is it? Like, okay, we're good on time. We're good on time. But I was listening to this sermon about trusting God and stuff, and he what I got from that is, when we talk to God, we're the talkers. We're the one who's talking a lot. But do we make time to sit in silence and listen to what God has to say? Because I know for me, I'll be talking to God. I'll be like, yada, yada, yada. And then I give him a second. Because I'm like, all right, speak. I'm like, speak. And then I go back to just talking. Because I'm like, I don't know. But it's just like those moments when you just be present. We're always going to have thoughts. We can't erase the thoughts. But just allow your mind to flow, because that's where like God reveals himself. It's the whispers, it's the feelings, it's the drive to just That's the message. That's the what he's trying to say, and we have to allow ourselves to trust and allow our minds just to be silenced. And it's a process to get there, but like you said, cutting out the noise. Don't listen to so many people. To always bring it to God and like test him, test the spirit. Like, is this from you? Like, does this resonate with me? Does this go against my belief? Like, what is it about this video that's driving an emotion or whatever? Because not everything that's being said isn't, you're not always supposed to just take it with you and stuff. But yeah, I'm excited to, because we're not even a whole month in since the fast, and like so much internal change has happened. So I'm excited to see the rest of the year how the external will reflect what we went through, and just how we just keep developing ourselves.
So accountability, because I think you said something about wanting to do regular fasting. What is that? What does the future look like for you?
Yeah, so during the fast is when I found out about Christina Shaney. And something about her energy, I don't know, something about her just, I really resonated with her. And it's like the way she talked about her relationship with God and how she seeked him, I wanted that. Like, I wanted that. And I know last year when I was kind of doing regular fasting, the goal was to do a fast every single week, but then I strayed away from it. I was like, this is my work. This is uncomfortable. I want to eat. But now that I'm more mature, and now that I understand and I'm just more intentional, I want fasting to be a lifestyle. Because especially like internally, and this is what I wanted to like speak about, like way before the fast started, I feel like God was already preparing me. Because I went through this like weird health issue with my abdomen, whatever, where it led me to eat very little. Like, I wasn't eating because I was scared to trigger pain within my stomach. So I kind of started, I stopped drinking. I was smoking a little bit, but I didn't drink. I wasn't eating rice. I was just eating very small. Moving forward, just continuing to deepen my relationship with God. Just allowing the noise, because food can be noise initially.
That part.
It could be noise because like processed and these bad things and stuff. So it's like allowing my spirit to be clean for God at least once a week. So I'm able to just move forward and, figure stuff out with him. I want that. I want to deepen my relationship, so I'm just relying on God and nothing else. And not going to God first and then seeing what happens after that. Just finding time where you could just allow yourself, like where you can just give yourself to God, like fully. And I want to do that more often, where I'm just giving myself to God more than anything else, more than any other person. It's God first. God first, and then this, and then my business, and then, because he brings everything with that. If you focus on your purpose, you focus on God, you focus on becoming, everything else comes with it. Like, everything else comes with it. Like, stop focusing on the external and trying to manifest all these materialistic things and traveling and houses and a relationship, and just focus on becoming. Once you focus, it's like that's the price you get from when you become this person. it's inevitable for it not to come.
Mm-hmm.
It comes with the package.
And the question too is like, what's your intention behind the motive? Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Because if it is external, there's probably something within you that's trying to like please other people or compete with other people. Like, what is the motive behind that intention?
I realize like not everyone's relationship is the same with God.
Mm-hmm.
Like God, like it's a relationship for a reason. It's not supposed to look like me. It's not supposed to look like yours.
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to look like homeboy over there. Like, it's supposed to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of it. Because it's like you have this personal relationship with your creator. Do you have any other stuff you want to say? Anything to close off?
There was something that was coming up for me that I let go of. I think it was related to trust. Nope. It'll come back if it's supposed to.
Well, maybe it'll come back once I say this.
Say it.
My last message is God wants all of you. Don't be afraid to show him your truth. Don't be afraid to tell him your dangerous thoughts and ideas, and don't be afraid, because he created you. He's your creator. So it's like he knows we're not perfect, but as long as we are always going to him and asking him for help and guidance and allowing him to show us what we need to do in order to get to the next level, and trusting him within that, even if you don't understand, just see what happens, because God always surprises you in the most miraculous way. Like he does it for good. So give yourself to him, go deep with him, and understand your relationship with him.
So I do remember. It was something related, and obviously I won't go too long, but it was something related to like understanding how the ego works. Because something that you mentioned earlier, as far as like how we connect with God, what was coming up for me related to like this internal versus external version of God. Like obviously God is within you, God is never separate from you, but for me, I recognize that humility is important. Like as much as I wanted to like completely be like, I am God. Like, yes, we are God. We're made in his image. But it was like, for me, because I'm a woman, because I have this desire to surrender to a masculine, healthy, equally yoked man that's going to cater to all of this, right? As much as I like recognize that in my nature, I naturally want to surrender, it is important to build this relationship, take out the middleman, and figure out how God communicates to you. Because for me, if I'm just dependent on myself, like Jazz was saying, like the ego is just, it's hard to like to not have ego. Like ego, you can't. There's a quote that I've read. It was like, you can only tame the ego, you cannot annihilate it. So you can't get rid of it, you can only tame it. And so through this process, I was recognizing like, okay, I can actually see what my ego looks like a little bit better. And now it's like, I need the creator's help. I need to like feel like I'm surrendering to something greater than me, to God, because if I'm just relying on myself, it's so easy to be blinded by the ego and to feel like, oh, I got it like that, like I'm all this powerful. Like, yes, we're powerful, but like we didn't create us, we didn't create this world, so who are you going to answer to?
Yeah, exactly.
It can't be men, that's for sure. And I'm not saying men like the physical male version, I'm saying like the flesh. It can't just be the flesh. It has to be more in the spirit. So figure out how God talks to you and disconnect to connect.
Period. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope y'all got a lot of value.
Thanks for having me, Jazz.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
A lot of appreciation.